Good morning, guys. Welcome back to Morgan Hill Farm. So I came out this morning in a sweatshirt and sweatpants, and I was thinking that it was going to be cold because when I looked out the window it just looked so incredibly dreary. But when I got out here I realized that it's got to be close to 80 degrees with about 100% humidity. So it is just incredibly balmy out here. We have been so unseasonably warm here, especially at night, still staying in the 60s at night, that I'm actually thinking about starting some of my green beans as well as some of my squashes and other warm season crops that I direct sow into my garden. I don't know if we will get a late frost, but I haven't seen anything on that 10-day forecast, and so I'm thinking I may give it a try this year. But today's going to be a really busy day for me. I'm trying to do something where I make all of our bread products for the month, so I have a ton of bread rising inside. I was getting that going so that I can have that all risen and ready to work with when I come back out. Our peak hours on our electric bill run from 3 to 6, so I can't run the oven during those times. So I wanted to get all that bread dough rising. So we're going to be doing bread, cinnamon raisin bread, we're doing bagels, cinnamon rolls, all kinds of stuff. So that's what's waiting for me inside today. So over the weekend, Nate and I had been working on our orchard. I'm not sure if you can see it back there, but it's sort of back there in the distance. And while we were up there, we were talking about our kids. And I was asking him, and I said, do you think our kids understand the value of hard work? Do you think they'll be hard workers when they grow up? And the reason that I was asking him that is because although our kids are pretty good at getting stuff done, like when they get their animal chores in the morning, they all know that that has to be done. I don't really hear grumbling or feedback about that from them. But when I ask them to do tasks that are a bit more difficult, maybe I need them to spend a couple hours with me down in the garden, maybe we're building something, maybe somebody needs to go mow for me or something like that, I do get the eye rolls. I do get that that sigh of just disbelief that they have to do that. But overall, they're pretty good, but I still do get the times where they're grumbling and they don't want to do what I've asked them. And, my hope is that they see Nate and I working. They see us doing these things for our family, to better our family, to eat healthy foods, to be prepared, and that when they're older, that they really see that and they become very hardworking, motivated, passionate adults that will contribute to society. And it's funny, we always talk about our youngest. So he's 8 years old, and we always say, gosh, he's gonna live with us forever because he is the baby. He's got everybody taking care of him. When my oldest was 8, my oldest could make a full meal for himself. He was helping the younger ones tie their shoes, and my youngest now is like, can somebody get me a glass of water? So we always joke that he's gonna be the one that lives with us forever. And and I say that to you kind of in a funny way, but I came across something the other day that I did want to talk to you guys about. Do you realize that 1 in 3 adult children between the ages of 18 and 34 are living at home with their parents right now? 50% of them say it's just too hard to support themselves. And 40% of them say, I don't make enough money to be able to live the lifestyle that I want. And I think about that, and I think of how I started out. I had an apartment, I had no furniture, I had an old vehicle. I lived in Las Vegas. I had an old vehicle with no air conditioning in the hot Las Vegas sun. That in and of itself was pretty tough. But I remember, gosh, I worked full time, sometimes not being able to go to the store and get all the groceries that I wanted because, I was broke, but I made it work. I didn't run back home to mom and dad. But these kids today, or these adult children, I should say, they want the Mercedes, they want the big fancy house, they want the big toys, And I remember there was one girl, and she was making $90,000 a year, and she said, why would I go out and why would I rent somewhere, or why would I buy a house somewhere where I can just live at home for free, where my food is taken care of, my utilities are taken care of, mom and dad provide everything that I want. And she was driving a BMW, like I said, making $90,000 a year. And her aunt had said to her, you have the money to go out and buy a home and start your life. And this girl was in her late 20s. And she said, well, I can't buy one in this neighborhood, which is where her parents lived. And so this was a very upscale neighborhood. I think it was in New Jersey or something like that, where real estate is pretty expensive. But these adults, they want everything. From the moment that they step out of their parents' house, they think that they should have the house that their parents have the cars, have that discretionary spending. And it's just crazy to me that the parents are allowing this. The parents seem to be completely fine with it, to the tune of $1,500 a month. That is the average that these parents are giving their kids. They're giving these adult children 2 times more than what they are contributing to their own retirement accounts. And meanwhile, 80% of them said that they were concerned about their own retirement. They were worried that they didn't have enough put away in order for them to retire comfortably. And they worried about that, but they felt responsible for their kids. 50% of them said, we feel responsible for giving our adult children money and helping to support them. And the things that they were paying for were crazy. They were paying for their cell phone bills. They're paying for their car notes. They are paying for their adult children's credit cards. They're giving them money for discretionary spending. They're even paying for their adult children's vacations. And that just really blows my mind. These parents are putting off retirement. They are pulling from retirement and their savings accounts in order to fund their adult children's lifestyles. They are decreasing their own lifestyle. And they're doing this all and saying, you know, this is what I'm supposed to do. But I disagree. I completely disagree with that. I think that we are supposed to prepare our kids to go off on their own when they are 18, 19, 20. Now, I'm completely fine with letting my kids stay in my house if they are working towards maybe some higher education. Maybe they're saying, Mom, I really need to save up for a down payment, something like that. I'm okay with helping my kids do that. You can stay here, but you have to be a productive member of society, and you have to be helping out here. And that was another crazy thing that I was reading about with this, is that these parents, they don't require their adult children, like 50% of them are not required to have a job or to be looking for gainful employment. 45% of these adult children are not required to be pursuing some type of education. They're not required to help with household expenses. And they're not even requiring these adult children to be saving for some type of financial goals. And a lot of these parents don't even have a timeline of when they will try to, have their adult children move out. They just say, it's okay, we're helping them. But my question is that if you're postponing your retirement and you're worried about the amount of money that you have in retirement, do you think that your adult children are going to take care of you when you need help financially? I just think that if these adult children are making these poor decisions this far into their life, and they most likely have been coddled since they have been younger, they probably have not had to do hard chores, or maybe not had to do hard work, not know what it is to fail, not know what it is to have to persevere, be uncomfortable, do things when they don't want to. I mean, that is something that we really try to do here with our kids. My oldest is 15, and if I ask him to do something and he's grumbling about it, my response to him consistently is, someday you will have a wife and children. And there will be days where you do not want to get up and go to work because either you hate your job, you're tired, perhaps there's something going on at home, you're stressed, whatever. But your wife and your children are going to need to eat, they're going to need a roof over their heads, and that is your job. So you zip your lip and you go to work and you get it done. And that is how we're trying to raise our kids here. But it was just really, really surprising to me, this whole article. And to me, it seems like our foundation is crumbling. One thing that they said in the article was that these kids, if they did move out, with the smallest little upset, they would run back home and move back home with their parents. Now, I want you to think about your grandparents or maybe your great-grandparents and think about World War II. World War II had the highest voluntary enlistment rate of any war. My grandfather was a pilot in the Air Force in World War II. He flew tons and tons and tons of missions. He actually was shot in the neck and shot down, and he did survive that. He got the Purple Heart. But these men, they saw a cause to fight for, and they didn't run from it. They ran to it so that they could do what our country needed. They could do what needed to be done in the world. And they weren't, they weren't running home because, they had a small upset in their early years. My grandfather went from working in a textile mill to war because he felt passionate about it. You know, he was doing probably work that he didn't want to do, but he was doing it because he knew that that's what was expected of him. He wasn't going to be able to live with his parents till he was 34 years old. No, and when the country needed him, he went and he enlisted, and he fought for our country and fought for this world and fought for things that were important. And I think our foundation is crumbling. This generation that is allowing their adult children to stay at home, this will be the last generation that's able to do that, because the upcoming generation, they won't have the work ethic, they won't have the motivation, and they won't have the skills to be able to support their children coming up. I think we're going to find society is going to rely more and more and more on our government, just because we aren't teaching our kids those important things. And that's my question to you, is what are you teaching your kids? Are you teaching them to get back up, you know, when they've got that skinned knee? Are you showing them that, you know what, sometimes we have to do things that we don't want to do, and sometimes we have to put a smile on our face, and we have to do it because that's just what needs to get done. You know, do I want to spend all of my summer days in the hot 95 South Carolina summer weather, picking potatoes or, you know, getting rid of pests in the garden? No, I do enjoy it. There's aspects that I enjoy, but it is hard work. And I do it because I want my kids to be healthy. I want us to be prepared. I want to know where my food is coming from. So I have those goals and I work hard to meet those. But if we're not teaching our kids the skills of growing food, maybe it's just how to fix a flat tire. How many kids don't know how to do that? It blows my mind how many people don't even know how to change a light bulb. I think that that's something pretty intuitive that everybody should be able to figure out. And that's another thing, problem solving. Do these kids know how to problem solve? You know, can your kids sew and fix some of their clothing? Do they know what it takes to maintain a house? Can you change your AC filters in your home? Can you fix the dishwasher if it stops working on you? You know, all of those things. I just think that these are really important skills, very basic skills, really, that our kids don't know, you know. And then when you go into a little bit further knowledge, when you talk about preserving food, growing food, animal husbandry, you know, maybe pasture management, that type of stuff takes a little bit more to educate your kids with that. And of course, you have to do a little work to learn that as well. But I also think that those are really valuable things. So I want to challenge you guys to really make sure that you are, you know, you're making your kids and grandkids get out there with you in that garden. You're making them come down to the goats with you when you're trimming the hooves to kind of show them, you know, what we do and what we don't do. Hey, you know, this animal has this problem. You're going to go ahead and you're going to help me fix this. You know, you're going to hold the chicken while I clip its wings so it stops flying out of the coop, or whatever it may be. But I really want to encourage you guys. I think that your kids and grandkids will thank you in the long run, and they will be so much better off if we can just start to instill these work ethics and these stronger, important values into them now. Don't be the parent that lets your kid come live back home with you when they're just sitting in the basement playing video games all day, because that is not helping them. It's not helping them at all. And our job, even though sometimes it is hard to push them out of that nest, it is our job to do it for their own good. So anyways, guys, I've got to get back inside and get to all of my bread today, but thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Yeah, that's perfect, yeah.